Well, let's talk about some of your other competitors, because this was a big week for Texas Governor Rick Perry. He went on the campaign trail, and he raised a lot of eyebrows. He made some comments about evolution, and he said this about climate change, quote, "I don't think, from my perspective, that I want to be
engaged in spending that much money on still a scientific theory that has not been proven, and from my perspective, is more and more being put into question."
These comments from Governor Perry prompted you to tweet, quote, "To be clear, I believe in evolution and trust scientists on global warming. Call me crazy." Were you just being cheeky, or do you think there's a serious problem with what Governor Perry said?
I think there's a serious problem. The minute that the Republican Party becomes the party, the anti-science party, we have a huge problem. We lose a whole lot of people that would otherwise allow us to win the election in 2012. When we take a position that isn't willing to embrace evolution, when we take a position that basically runs counter to what 98 of 100 climate scientists have said, what the National Academy of Sciences has said about what is causing climate change and man's contribution to it, I think we find ourselves on the wrong side of science and therefore in a losing position. The Republican Party has to remember that we're drawing from traditions go back as far as Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, President Eisenhower, Nixon, Reagan, and Bush, and we've got a lot of traditions to draw upon, but I can't remember a time in our history where we actually were willing to shun science and become a party that was antithetical to science. I'm not sure that's good for our future, and it's not a winning formula.
A December 2010 Gallup poll showed 52% of Republicans believe in strict creationism, and a March 2010 poll showed only 31% believe climate change has started. So as with your working for the Obama administration and your once supporting cap and trade, is it possible that this position that you're staked out on science is one where you're out of step with your party?
I think we ought to be straight up and rational and stick with the facts. And when we have a body of science, listen, when you know, if you had 98 out of 100 oncologists, cancer doctors, who basically said the following course of treatment is going to be good for prostate, breast, or colon cancers, we would all salute and say, finally, we have a consensus among the scientific community. We raise up our young people, we tell them to get a good education, we tell them to move forward and solve the great challenges of today, find a cure for cancer, make the world a better place. We then get the results and we're willing to jettison it and to shun it. I just think that's the wrong direction. And I'm here to tell you that a lot of people in this country and a lot of people in the Republican Party, I think, are willing to embrace science and are willing to embrace the realities that have been present around whether it's evolution or whether it is climate change. And I'm here to tell you, for us to be successful as a party, we must be a party that respects science, not one that runs from science.
Governor Perry also caused some controversy this week when he said this about Fed Chair Ben Bernanke, quote, "If this guy prints more money between now and the election, I don't know what y'all would do to him in Iowa."
We would treat him pretty ugly down in Texas. I mean, printing more money to play politics at this particular time in American history is almost treacherous, or treasonous, in my opinion.
A former Bush political guru, Karl Rove, called that remark unpresidential. What do you think?
Well, I don't know if that's pre-secession Texas or post-secession Texas, but in any event, I'm not sure that the average voter out there is going to hear that treasonous remark and say, that sounds like a presidential candidate. That sounds like someone who is serious on the issues. But it gets to a broader point of, the fact that, we've had so much hope and hype in politics the last little while. We found ourselves at the extreme ends of the political spectrum, and people are crying out for us to get back to some level of sensibility. And this just kind of perpetuates the name-calling and the finger-pointing and the blame game, where we want solutions. We want to look to the future. We want somebody with vision. We don't want to look back. We as Americans are the most optimistic blue sky people the world has ever known. We want to look forward and we want solutions. And every time we have these sideshows take place, finger pointing and name calling, it takes us that much farther off the ball, which is fixing our core in this country, is getting our economy fixed and creating jobs.
So do you think that Governor Perry is unelectable were he to get the Republican nomination? He would lose to President Obama?
I think when you find yourself at an extreme end of the Republican Party, you make yourself unelectable. We've got to remember, in order to beat Obama in 2012, we've got to have numbers on our side. We've got to have candidates who can bring to the forefront enough people, enough in the way of cross-border support and non-traditional support. We've got to win back the Reagan Democrats. We've got to win back the disaffected independents who used to be Republicans at one point in time. We've got to bring them back into a big tent party and move forward, remembering that we respect opinions. We're a party of smaller government. We are a party of life. We're a party that believes in strengthening the economy, creating a more competitive environment that is conducive to job creation. We're also a party that I think doesn't believe in wasting a whole lot of time overseas when we have conflicts that are absolutely consistent with our national security goals and with our economic needs. For example, you've got Afghanistan. That needs to be seriously looked at. We need to bring people home from Afghanistan. This should not be a nation-building exercise when we have nation-building to do right here in our own country. This is a counter-terror effort. We need people in Afghanistan who can collect intelligence, special forces capabilities, and some element to train the Afghan national troops. But we should not be involved in nation building, and we've got to basically call it for what it is and get back to strengthening the core of this country, or we are of no value to the rest of the world. That light, that goodness that traditionally has radiated over the years, that speaks to democracy, that speaks to liberty, that speaks to open markets and human rights, we're not projecting that goodness anymore. The world always is a better and a safer place with a strong America. And right now, we don't have a strong America.